Hi everyone, welcome back to Get Your Play Online. This is going to be a fun in the kitchen segment. So today we are going to be making ASL pasta salad. So what that means is we're going to be making pasta salad. As you can see, I have some ingredients here that are going to be used to make our pasta salad. And we are going to learn what these ingredients are in American Sign Language using some of these flashcards. So, before we get started, I just want to say that I am conversational in sign language and not fluent, so some signs could be not exactly what maybe a fluent American Sign Language user would utilize, but they are accurate and I have done research to make sure that they are correct. So, just a disclaimer. All right, let's get started. So, first, let's go over the ingredients that you're going to need to make this American Sign Language pasta. So, you're going to need a big bowl to put all the ingredients in. You are going to need salt, which let's go ahead and grab the American Sign Language sign for salt and practice. All right, so salt, you take your hands like this, take your other two fingers, so yeah, and then you just tap them like they're dancing on top of the other hands. So that is the American Sign Language sign for salt. All right, and then a smaller bowl for mixing up the ingredients later in a spoon. Set that aside. And then garlic. So let's grab the American Sign Language sign for garlic. So garlic is like this. So you kind of tilt this hand out a little bit and then rub it right there. All right. So that's garlic, and that would be the garlic salt and the garlic powder for that as well. So you're going to need both. I'm going to set those aside. Going to need an onion, so let's go ahead and talk about the American Sign Language sign for onion. So onion is you rub right next to your eye because onions can make you cry sometimes. So that's the American Sign Language sign for onion, and I'm going to set this aside. And then let's talk about oil. So oil is just finger spelled. So it goes O-I-L, oil. So that is oil. All right, let's go to our next one. Our next sign is olives. So we're going to need black olives. So olives, you put your hand like this and just drag it along your chin. Olive. So that is black olives, and you're going to need that. And you'll need about, this can is a 2.25 ounce can of olives, so you can utilize that. And for this recipe, it's pretty flexible with what you put into it. So sometimes I like to put other things that it might not actually require. So things like carrots or broccoli or cauliflower rather than some of the ingredients that I have here. This is just the recipe that my family and I like to use. And then, so we did the sign for olives. Our next sign is pepperoni. So we like to use the mini pepperonis, but you can use the big ones too. When we utilize the big ones, we usually cut them into quarters. So 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces out of the big pepperoni. So just utilize some scissors or a knife to cut those. Make them a little smaller. So that's pepperoni. And remember, you can utilize other things in this as well. This is just what I am using and what the original recipe calls for, but you can put other meats in it. You can put other vegetables in it. It's just kind of up to your own discretion, and you don't have to include all of these ingredients if you don't want to. It's just how the recipe looks. So pepperoni. So pepperoni is a lot of times on pepperoni pizza. So what you're going to do is create like a circle with your hand like this. And then you're going to go and put it like you're putting pepperoni on pizza. So you're like tracing the pepperoni on a pizza. And that's the sign for pepperoni. And then our next sign is tomatoes. So I'm just going to tomato. So I'm going to set these down. So tomato, you kind of utilize the sign for red, which red is this. And you have your other finger with one down, and you just drag it down your chin and tap it like you're cutting a tomato. Tomato. And that's the sign for tomato. All right, let's check out what our next ingredient is. So our next ingredient is going to be Parmesan cheese. So we use the grated Parmesan cheese. Yummy. So cheese in sign language is like this. So you kind of grind your hands together, and that's the sign for cheese. And then some other ingredients. Of course, for pasta salad, you need some noodles. We like to use these colorful garden rotinis because they really bring in a lot of color and a really interesting flavor, but you can utilize spaghetti noodles or whatever kind of noodle you would like to use, and whatever noodle you have is totally fine. These are just the ones that we like to use, is the little garden rotinis. I'm going to set those aside. And our last ingredient that we're going to, I forgot to show you the sign for noodles. So noodles, you take your pinky fingers and you draw a little squiggle in the air, like a squiggly noodle. So noodle. And then the last ingredient that we have a sign for, or thing that we're going to need that we have a sign for, is peppers. Now I have some pre-chopped up peppers that I'm going to use today because my family grows peppers in our garden, and then we chop them up and freeze them. But if you don't have that, which most people don't, you can just chop up whatever color pepper you'd like, red, green, yellow, whatever color, and utilize those. So pepper is another one that is finger spelled. So some words just don't have signs for them, and that's okay. We just finger spell them. So P, E, P, P, E, R. So pepper. All right. So besides those that you're going to need, and I forgot to grab a couple of things. I'm going to grab them. Sorry about that. So you are going to need 1/3 of a cup to measure out the Parmesan for later. And then you're going to also need a teaspoon to measure out the garlic for later as well. All right, let's get started. Oh wait, I forgot. You're going to need a big spoon to stir the noodles. You're going to obviously need a knife, which means that this is an activity for adolescents and school agers or with assistance from parents, because with knives, we have to be really safe. We have to make sure that we are keeping our fingers out of the way and making sure that we are taking care of ourselves when we are utilizing knives. So be careful when you're using your knife. And then you're also going to need a strainer for your noodles. And then a pot to cook your noodles. All right, so let's get started. So before we even get to cooking, the first thing we need to do is wash our hands. So let's go ahead and wash our hands. All right, perfect. Now our hands are washed, and we just need to dry them off. All right. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get our noodles boiling. So let's throw some water in here into our pan. I like to fill my pans about 2/3 of the way full when I'm cooking noodles. Then I'm just going to set our strainer into the sink because we're not going to really need our sink too much. All right, let's get started with throwing all of our ingredients on. And I have this pan onto high, and I'm actually going to grab some of our salt and throw some of our salt in it so that the water is salted. All right, and I'm just going to leave that to start the boiling process. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and get some of our ingredients into our bowl here. So I'm going to set this aside. So we can really get started with our pepperoni, because if you are like me, you have the mini pepperoni. And it's a pretty quick thing to just kind of throw them into the bowl. And you're going to want to make sure that you grab the little packet thing out of it so that it doesn't get into your food. So I'm just going to go throw this away. All right. Next, my olives are pre-sliced. So I'm just going to grab a can opener and get those open. All right, let's get them opened. All right. Now, I'm going to take this out of here for a second. I'm going to rinse off our can opener so that it is clean. I'm going to put that back right away because I won't be needing that anymore. So now I have my open can of olives, but as you might be able to see, it has some juice on it. So I'm going to need to rinse that juice off. So I'm just going to use the lid to kind of get that juice out of there. And you probably are going to want a parent's help with this because cans can be really sharp, especially once you open them. So you're going to want a parent to help you with this. All right, now I have my open olives and I'm just going to give them a rinse and do the same thing just so that they get a little cleaned off. And I'm just going to do that again. So I'm just going to run them under the water a couple of times. All right, so now I have my olives and they're all rinsed off. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw those in. So now in my pasta salad, I have pepperoni. And do we remember what olives was? Olives. So I have pepperoni and I have olives in my pasta salad. So now we have all of our ingredients that don't need to be chopped up or anything like that into our bowl. One of my things just fell down. So next we can grab our next ingredient, which is going to be tomatoes. Now this container is a 10-ounce container, and I'm actually going to put all of these tomatoes in. But I also really like tomatoes, so if you're not too big a fan of tomatoes, you don't have to put that much in. I just really like them. I'm going to go throw this, get it out of our way. All right. So we need to rinse these tomatoes, so I'm just going to go ahead and get these rinsed off. And I'm actually just going to use the container to rinse them. I'm just going to do that a couple of times to make sure that they get nice and rinsed off. I'm just going to shake the container a little bit too, just to make sure that all of their sides and the inside ones all get cleaned. Make sure it's good and drained. And then your tomatoes are clean. So who remembers what the sign for tomatoes was before we go ahead and get those cut up? Tomato. Tomato. Great, like you're cutting a tomato. Awesome. So now we're actually going to cut our tomatoes. So we're going to cut them in half lengthwise. So across the tomato. So you see how this tomato is an oval, so you're going to cut it lengthwise. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm also keeping an eye on my water to see if it is boiling yet, because as soon as that gets boiling, we can throw our noodles in. And then I'm just cutting the tomatoes in half. It looks like my water is starting to have some bubbles in the bottom. So that's a good sign that it's starting to get ready to throw the noodles in. So we're just cutting all of them in half, and if there's one that looks really big compared to the other ones, you can cut those in half again if you would like. You don't have to, but you can. This is a pasta salad that my family and I love to make in the summertime because we have a lot of fresh fruits and veggies that go into this recipe. So we love to use those fresh fruits and veggies in our pasta salads. We grow baby tomatoes, we grow onions, and we grow green peppers, and all of those go into this recipe. So we love to make it when we have some fresh fruits and veggies to go into it. Just continuing to chop up those tomatoes, and you can put in as many as you would like, just kind of eyeballing it. And I only put in, I should have mentioned this before, apologies, but I only put in half of the container of mini pepperonis. And if you put in more, that is totally fine. It'll just be extra pepperoni. Alright, so I'm almost done cutting up my tomatoes. And by the time I get my tomatoes cut up, it looks like my water is going to be ready. So let's review now that we have the tomatoes cut up. Tomato. Perfect. Alright, I have all of my tomatoes cut up. I'm going to go throw this in the garbage. Get it out of the way. Alright, so I realized that I forgot to get my red peppers in there earlier. So with frozen ones, I gotta heat them up. So I will give you this chance to cut up your red peppers if you're putting red peppers in your recipe. Perfect. Looks like my water is starting to boil, so once I get the water out of these peppers and get them ready to go, I'll go throw my noodles in. Just gonna reconfigure my bag so I can get these rinsed off. And if you are done cutting up your peppers, you can go ahead and throw those into your bowl. I usually like to eyeball the peppers. Usually one pepper is good enough to make the recipe, and we like to chop ours in little pieces. Little squares. As you can see, my peppers that I have here are in little squares. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you one of them. So that's one of my little squares of pepper. And I'm just going to throw them in. I love to use different colors of peppers because it really livens up and brings a really good color to the recipe. This is a really colorful recipe if you utilize a lot of different vegetables and things like that. Alright, so I'm going to throw my bag of peppers away really quick. Alright. So now I am going to get my garden rotini ready, and you're going to want to make sure that you set a timer for however long your pasta needs to cook. So for this pasta, it says 9 to 11 minutes, and you kind of just have to test and see how and see when it gets to how you like it. So once you've dumped the pasta in, you're going to want to turn it down to between 5 and 6 on your stove and give it a nice stir so that it can kind of get off the bottom and so that it doesn't get stuck to the bottom. And then I am just going to set this aside so I can throw it in the recycling later. Okay, so now we have, let's review. We have our peppers. We have our olives, our pepperoni, and our tomatoes in our bowl. So now we can get started with our onion. So we're only going to use about half of this size of onion. It's a pretty big one, but around a medium sized onion is perfect. This one's a little bit larger, so I'm just going to grab our compost bucket so that I can throw the skin of the onion right into there. So to cut an onion, you're going to want to take the skin off of it first, which sometimes can be a little bit difficult to get off. So I got the skin off of it, and now I am going to cut the ends off of it and throw those into the compost bucket as well. So we don't need those. And then I always like to take a couple more layers off of my onions just to make sure that we are getting to the good parts of the onion. Right, so now my onion looks kind of like this. Now it's kind of white and it's got some little green spots on it. So now I'm going to rinse my knife off. And I'm going to move this back over here, and I'm going to rinse my onion off as well so it gets nice and clean before we cut it. And I'm actually going to rinse my cutting board off as well to make sure that's nice and clean. I'm going to go dry my hands off so I don't make the knife slip because my hands are wet. And you know what? I totally forgot to set a timer for how long these need to cook. So I'm just going to go ahead and set a timer for 7 minutes right now. Hey, Google, set a timer for 7 minutes. And then I will check on the
Starting now.
And then I'll check on it in about 7 minutes. All right, so I'm going to use this knife and I'm just going to cut it in half. And because this is a larger onion, I'm going to set 1/2 aside. And then I like to chop my onions into really tiny pieces so that I can't tell that it's in there, because I don't really like the flavor of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And throw them into my bowl. You guys will have to let me know if your onion makes you cry, because sometimes onions can be really potent and really strong. So, and making, again, like I talked about earlier, making sure that you do get parental help for cutting up fruits and veggies and things like that, or parental permission is always incredibly important when you are utilizing knives or sharp objects. And a stove as well. You want to make sure that you are being safe with the stove as well, because it does get really hot and that can result in some burns pretty easily. If you guys are using other meats or other veggies, I'd love to hear what kinds of meats or veggies you guys are using. You can post it in the comment section. And I'd love to see some of your pasta salads as well if you want to post pictures in the comments. I love seeing what you guys create from our lives. It's really always really fun to go back and look at old lives and see if there's any pictures and things like that. And remember, as you're adding stuff, that you can always add more. You can't always take away. So always try the minimum, and then you can always add more as well. Alright, so now I have my onion in here. So remember, onion, you put your pointer finger like this and like you're crying or wiping away a tear because onions can make you cry. And remember not to do that with the hand that you're only holding the onion it with because then you would really be crying. So I'm going to wash my hands after touching the onion because onions can be really potent, and if you touch your eye, it's not good. Alright, so now we have our hands nice and dry. Our pasta should be finishing up. I'm going to give it a nice stir. And so now we have all of our ingredients in here. Now we are going to make the topping for it. So I know in the poster it said half a teaspoon of garlic salt, garlic powder, and salt, but we're actually going to put in a teaspoon because I noticed when I made it that it needed a little bit more. So you can utilize a half a teaspoon to start if you'd like, just to make sure that it gets what the garlickiness that you would like. So I'm going to put in a teaspoon of salt, which is salt. And then I got some garlic. Garlic smells so good. Stop. All right, it looks like our pasta should be good. I am just going to grab a fork out of my drawer here so that I can try it, just to make sure that it is all done. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to turn my stove off. And I'm going to grab it and I am going to drain it. Now with this recipe, I always like to cool the pasta. So I'm going to set this pan aside while we make our stuff so that the pan can cool down before I put the pasta back in it. And before we cool off the pasta, I'm going to let some of the steam rise and get out of it while we finish this. I'm going to grab my teaspoon. I'm going to dip it into the garlic salt and throw that into my bowl as well. And then I'm going to set that aside. I grab my garlic powder. Throw that in there as well. And again, you can start off with half a teaspoon of garlic powder and garlic salt if you would like. So then you are going to need to grab and then I just like to kind of mix that up a little bit. And then you're going to need to grab a tablespoon and your oil, and you're going to start off with 6 tablespoons of oil. So I usually put in 6 to 9 tablespoons of oil, and it will really just depend on how much your noodles soak up the oil. So you want to watch out for that. So I like to start with 6, and then if it looks like the oil is really getting absorbed by those noodles, then I like to go back in and get that as well. Add some more. And this is a dish that's best after you put it into the fridge overnight or for a few hours at least, so that it can sit and the noodles can marinate with the garlic and it can really just be infused with those flavors. So I'm really just gonna stir that garlic and that salt and the garlic powder and the garlic salt up, and then I'm gonna dump a little bit onto our mixture that we had from earlier. And I'm gonna grab a fresh tablespoon, this is a big one, and mix that up just so that the veggies can get some of the oil and garlic and everything on them as well, because if you don't, your noodles will absorb all of the oil. So the oil and the garlic powder and salt and the salt is the one, and the noodles is the one thing in this recipe that we never divert from, because it is the sauce of the recipe and really the backbone of the recipe. So now I'm going to turn some cold water on so that I can rinse and cool these noodles. So I like to kind of just give them a good shake and stir them around as I am cooling them. And then once you've cooled them a little bit, you can throw them back into your pan. So I got my pan here. And then put them into the pan. And then put this right here for a second. You're going to put them in your pan and fill up your pan with some cold water. You're going to make sure you stir them around so that all of the noodles get nice and cooled. And I like to repeat this a couple times. And if you're making a dish that you want to be a warm dish, this process is totally unnecessary, but it just makes the cool pasta dish taste a lot better. So now that I got those rinsed off, I'm going to drain them again and then repeat that process as well. So picking up the noodles with the water in them, getting those out of the way, throwing my strainer in, and you're probably going to want some parental help for this as well, just because the pan can be a little hot. Okay, and then I'm just going to cool them off another time, running them under that cold water, giving them a good stir. And I'm using my hands, but you can utilize a spoon as well. Really just getting under there, stirring everything up. And then I'm going to dump them back into my container. And I am going to cool them again one more time. The noodles. Do you guys remember? Alright. Let that sit for a second while I dry my hand off. Alright. Let's switch these out. Put the strainer into the sink. And then drain them one last time. Alright, so now that they're drained, I'm going to set this over here, not on the one that I was cooking them on, so that it can cool off. So now I have all my noodles, and I'm just going to go ahead and dump them into the pasta salad. And give it a nice stir so that some of that oil and garlic and everything that's already in there can get infused with the noodles, and then it can get mixed up a little bit. So now I'm just going to give my oil and garlic another stir. And dump a little bit of it in there. And then give it a stir. I like to dump about a fourth or half of what you have left in there into here now so that when you stir it, it can get nice and stirred up and incorporated with some of the noodles that were on the top. And then repeating that process and kind of scraping it off and getting that on the noodles that are in there now on the top. So that you spread the garlic and oil love onto all of the noodles. Alright, so now I'm going to set that in my sink so I can clean that off later. Just rinsing my hands, and then I'm going to give it a good stir so that it can get all of the noodles and everything incorporated and spread out. This is a dish that's really good with things like steaks, hot dogs as like a side dish. Hot dogs, brats, things like that. Pairs really well with those. Okay, now I'm going to try one of my noodles to see how they taste, and if they taste like they might need a little more oil, I might throw a little more oil in here. I'll try another one. Okay, looks like some of them could use a little more oil. So I'm going to throw a little more oil in. And then we'll put in our Parmesan. I'm just going to throw in another tablespoon of oil. Sometimes the oil likes to sink to the bottom, so anytime you open up, I'm actually going to put in 2. Anytime you open up your dish, you're going to want to give it a nice big stir so that you get the oil from the bottom, making sure to scrape the bottom as you're stirring so that it gets the oil nice and spread out throughout the noodles and vegetables that are in your pasta salad. And that's perfect. So it should be a little bit oily at this point because the noodles are going to absorb some of the noodles or absorb some of the oil as they are kind of sitting in the fridge and getting the oil infused into the noodles. So that's perfect. So now I'm going to grab my 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan and I am going to, whoa, dumped out a little bit too much. There we go. All right. A big clump, so I'm just gonna, yeah, there we go. So now I'm gonna spread about half of that over it. I did a lot more than half and just get that all spread out. This Parmesan is the other thing that we do not waver from with this recipe, no matter what fruits and veggies and whatever we put into it. We always put Parmesan in it. Just gives it a nice cheesy flavor. So now that we got that stirred in, let's go ahead and add the rest of the Parmesan to this section of noodles and olives and tomatoes and everything. All right, so now we have our pasta salad, and we always like to spread it out and kind of make a little flat top, and then put our lid back on the Parmesan and just sprinkle some of that Parmesan on the top so that it creates a nice layer of Parmesan. And then you can eat it like this right now, or you can let it sit and see how it tastes and see what you prefer. So that is our ASL pasta salad. I really hope you guys enjoyed doing this. Oh wait, I forgot cheese when we added the cheese. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this pasta salad. Um, please let me know if you try it in the comment section below. I'd love to see some of your some of your creations, and if you learned some new signs, I'd love to see you signing them in the comment section too. I love seeing all those things. But yeah, this has been Liz with Get Your Plan Line making ASL pasta salad, and I hope you guys enjoyed this fun in the kitchen and come back tonight for some bedtime stories. All right, bye everyone.